Hey everyone, thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to be talking about Ethereum and its value with respect to Bitcoin. So if you guys like this content, please subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on by clicking the bell icon. And also please check out the Telegram and Discord channels in the description below. We have a lot of good conversations in there. We're still pushing 1,800 members and really looking to grow that community. So with that said, if you want to remind yourself, so we've looked at this chart before. So this is just Ethereum Bitcoin, and we in fact made a video on this. So before I start to get into this too much, this is not up to date, and we're going to provide an up-to-date chart in a minute, but we're going to show where we were last time. So about a month or two ago, we made a video. And the video was essentially looking at macro level Ethereum Bitcoin trends, and we called for the fact that, we also made another video where we said that Ethereum Bitcoin was undervalued, and we were looking at these macro level trends. So with that, we had this chart, and then moving forward in time to bringing us to where we currently are. So we noted that Ethereum Bitcoin was undervalued, as well as Ethereum US dollar. With regard to the macro level moves. And this is what's happened since that video, actually. You can see that it appears that we have started a new move here, and Ethereum Bitcoin is up like 50% or something around that since the last time we really talked about this specific ratio about a month ago or so. So let's continue moving forward to try to get a better idea of where we might be in the grander scheme of things with regards to Ethereum and its relative value to Bitcoin. So we've noted that our cycle ROIs. So the interesting thing about Ethereum is that it tends to have, at least historically, in the last market cycle of Bitcoin, Ethereum had several sub-cycles of its own during the bull run that Bitcoin experienced. So these two cycles are actually, they're sub-cycles. They were both of these cycles occurred within the last Bitcoin bull run. The first cycle, the light blue line, occurred when Bitcoin held the 20-week moving average as support, and then the red line occurred when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high. So you'll note that Bitcoin recently went above the 20-week moving average. That was what we were saying. Okay, we're looking for Bitcoin to get above the 20-week moving average. And when it did, Ethereum started to make its own move. Now, one of the things we noted in prior analysis is that it's possible that we've already started a potential third cycle, indicating that this was the bottom, was the local bottom of Ethereum Bitcoin ROI since that sub-market cycle bottom. Now, if it is, then we can shift it and say, okay, well, the light blue was the first sub-cycle of the Bitcoin's bull run from 2016 and 2017. The red line was the second cycle, a sub-cycle from Bitcoin's bull run. And if you wanted to even break it down further, you could even make this run right here when Bitcoin reached the end of its bull run. You could say that this is Ethereum's third cycle. But note that this would be a lot lower on the chart compared to the other two sub-cycles. Now, let's say that we have our first set of cycles, our first set of sub-cycles within the macro level Bitcoin cycle. So if that's the case, then it's possible that we've entered our first sub-cycle of the next, potentially long Bitcoin run that will likely, or maybe will hopefully take place over the next 2 to 3 years. Now, obviously, it's too early to really say this for sure. In order for us to get confirmation, at least, I think that the bull run has started, then Bitcoin will need to retest the 20-week moving average several times and hold it as support. And historically, that is what Bitcoin needs to do to stay in the bull market. And historically, the minute we break that 20-week moving average, we're headed down. And even recently, Bitcoin, back in early 2019, it broke above the 20-week moving average, and then it held it for a long time at $10,000, which was the 20-week moving average at the time, and then it broke through, and then the price just dropped $2,000, almost immediately for Bitcoin. So we're above the 20-week now. We'll have to wait and see when Bitcoin retests the 20-week. So currently the 20-week I think is around $8,400 or something like that. So that doesn't mean that Bitcoin has to drop to $8,400 to test it. It might not test it for 3 months, and by that point the 20-week might be $10,000. We don't know. But when it does test it, we need to stay above it. And if we do, then I think I would argue that Ethereum Bitcoin is still undervalued in the grand scheme of things, because if you plot the third potential cycle, if we were to take this next cycle, then this is potentially where we are on that curve. So we're still pretty low. Note that in the last two, we went up to around a 20x return on investment. So note also too that this is going from a logarithmic scale. This one's not a logarithmic scale, but you can see that this one, it goes up to 20x, around, not quite 20x, but close to 20x. And currently, if we were plotting it on a log scale, it obviously wouldn't go up that high, because so far it's only gone up about 50% with respect to Bitcoin. Now, while a lot of people, this is very encouraging to see the 50% gain, I agree, it's great. In the grand scheme of things, it's actually almost nothing compared to some of the historical moves that Ethereum has made with respect to Bitcoin. And you can see that this slight move here, maybe it's the start of a larger move. Now, I will talk about again that we would expect to see diminishing returns. I don't think that every coin is going to just gain on Bitcoin at the same rate or the same level that it has in the past. Maybe it will, but I think you need to be prepared for the fact that that might not happen, because if Ethereum, if the ratio, say, were to go up, say, 10x from the local market cycle bottom, you might want to consider the fact that dollar cost averaging your sales could be a wise choice if you're okay, or at least if you want to ensure you're taking profits, because remember, there are no guarantees in this market that we will get up to a 20x from the cycle bottom. So and with that said, for us to get to a 20x, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio where it currently is, it would be getting to, say, point or from the local bottom. So it wouldn't be what Ethereum Bitcoin is today. It would be what it was when I took this, which was probably around 0.017, or maybe, I don't know, something like that. So let's just say it's 0.02. Then if you were to take that and multiply it by 20, then you would get to 0.4, which would obviously be fairly high, considering in the last cycle we got to around 0.15. Getting to a ratio of 0.4 would be actually quite incredible. So I don't think we're going to make it that high in the ratio. I do think that we will see diminishing returns with respect to Bitcoin, but again, the current move is nothing compared to what it has done. Now, remember, Ethereum US dollar, the price of Ethereum in USD has gone up a lot more than it has with respect to Bitcoin. It's actually gone up between 100 and 150% since we published that video. So you would actually be doing quite well. But I know some people out there, their goal is to primarily think of Ethereum's value with respect to Bitcoin, which I agree with. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so that note that on this scale, we are still fairly early on in our move, and it's possible again that Bitcoin doesn't hold the 20-week and we're just kicking the can down the road. But in the macro level scheme of Ethereum Bitcoin, we've barely scratched the surface of what the ratio has done historically. So, and then you can also see how, if we were to treat these as subcycles, then the second one was a lot longer than the first. And then maybe this is going to be the first subcycle of the early Bitcoin bull run. And what we might see is we might see a move up at some point higher than where we currently are, and then I would expect a retracement, and then potentially seeing another move up later on in the cycle. Now, again, this is not financial advice. This is just looking at macro level moves of Ethereum, Bitcoin. So I want to draw your attention to a fractal. We've talked about it before a little bit, and I just want to reiterate, and I think this is another good way to identify where we might be in the cycle. So here we're looking at a log chart of Ethereum, Bitcoin with all the data. Now, one of the things we can note is that we have these peaks after a huge run up. So we could say we ran up, first peak, second peak, down. First peak, second peak, down. Let's look again. So here we have these kind of caution zones. So basically the idea is when these red dots are basically, Ethereum's already gone up an incredible amount. If you're buying at that region after it's gone up so extravagantly in the short term, that has not been a good thing in the past, and the red would indicate, this would be a very risky region to be buying Ethereum. The yellow would be more moderate because it's still coming off this all-time high. And then down here at the bottom, we would say that this is historically the best time to buy, and it's the least risky time to buy, because you're far away from a local peak, and you're also pretty much in an accumulation region each time. Now, hindsight is 2020. Obviously, we can only draw these because we can look back and see. But if we do use these as guidance, you can see if this is kind of, say, like a part of a cycle, because when Ethereum, from where we have data, Ethereum first went down. So if we were to say, you can kind of see the fractal here by the colored dots. So you have the yellow region, and I'm not saying that you would necessarily have to buy or sell or be moderate in these regions, but let's just say moderate buy sell, moderate buy sell, moderate buy, and clearly you can kind of see the similarities between this region here, and this region here. Each time we had this accumulation phase, which was from a long drop, a long, say, bear market with respect to this ratio. And you're probably saying, well, Ben, it's, we still aren't sure yet, and that's right, because potentially we could have put these green points up here. And in fact, if I had been making videos back then, maybe we would have thought that Ethereum would continue going up from this point, which is why you need to stay level-headed and do your own research. This is just my analysis, macro level moves. And when I first started making these videos, I noticed, we have had a long run down, and historically when we've had these long run downs, we will reach an accumulation phase and regain some of that value. So that's why we made that video. We said Ethereum Bitcoin is undervalued, and we would expect to move up, and you can see that we've entered that phase. Now here you can see we run down, we have the green light, basically first peak, second peak. Okay, after the second peak we come down, we have our last gas essentially, and then we drop back to the buy region. So again, buy region, peak, second peak, last gas, drop. Buy region, first peak, second peak, last gas, drop. Buy region. Now, you can see that if you had watched those videos, or if you're just an Ethereum bull, buying during this time was a really, if you had bought during that time, you would actually be doing, quite well at this point. You would at least be up 2x with respect to USD, and again, you'd be up 50x or 50% with respect to Bitcoin. So you can see this move has been quite substantial so far. We're gonna have to wait and see whether, you know, what's in store for the short term. If the market stays healthy, if Bitcoin stays above the 20-week, again, I'm optimistic. But also remember that, you know, the market is very finicky, and it could, you know, there's nothing's a sure thing. I still, you know, the risk in this region back here of buying Ethereum was really low. The risk now is much higher because of our short-term move. So, you know, take that into consideration. But when you're looking at the macro level picture, if you're not worried about day-to-day movements, if you're not focused on what we're doing one week, what we're doing the next, you know, if your goal is essentially to just dollar cost average your buys, then, you know, from the macro level picture, you know, the fractal, I think, is an important thing to note. So we would definitely say that the history does not necessarily predict the future, but we can still use it to help inform our future decisions. So this is why we said, again, this was a time when Ethereum Bitcoin was very undervalued. We are in a move as we speak. We'll continue following this move, continue to see if it keeps going up, what that would look like with the risk metric. If you want to check that out, then check out my Patreon account, patreon.com/intothecryptoverse. I do provide a lot of perks. If you wanna join up and support the channel, I would really appreciate it. But we will continue following Ethereum and Bitcoin, as well as a number of other coins, in the coming years. And if you wanna get a subscription to Ethereum Letters, which is going to be a very extensive research report that I've been doing on Ethereum with respect to the price and like price derivatives and whatnot, that will be released within a few days. So if you wanna get that, if you wanna receive that, then also check out the Patreon channel, and you can find a link in the description below. So I think that will wrap it up for this video. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you would like to continue talking about these charts and discuss them. Then check out the Telegram channel, and you know, there's plenty of people there that are discussing, you know, these charts as well as our own charts, and that's great. To do your own analysis and you know, bounce ideas off each other. I think that's a good thing. We're all here for the same reasons, or I think most of us are here for the same reasons. So let's just, you know, build a community, build a mature community, one that's level-headed, and let's go into the next few years together, in a sense, and then in 2 or 3 years, if we do go through this another bull run, we're going to be able to look back and say, okay, look how diligent we were. You know, we were studying the markets. We said, you know, during this time, historically, it looked like a good time. Maybe, you know, you dollar cost average a certain amount, and you can look back and be proud of that. And you know, people at that time, in 3 years, if Ethereum does go to, you know, $5,000 or something, you know, you're going to be the smart money. You know, people are going to be looking at you and say, how did you know? Like, why were you buying Ethereum when it was $100 after it had been $1,400? Well, it's the nature of the cryptocurrency markets. We see this becoming, you know, replacing a lot of, or at least integrating itself in society in one way or another with smart contracts, decentralized finance. We can kind of, I think a lot of us see the future. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of competition for Ethereum, but Ethereum does have the highest market share for what it's trying to do. Clearly, Bitcoin has a higher market capitalization, but Ethereum isn't really competing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's digital gold. It's not really a peer-to-peer currency. Ethereum's providing, you know, platforms for ERC20s. It's providing smart contracts that people are using all the time. I mean, I use smart contracts, and then we have just decentralized finance, which, you know, potentially might even be the catalyst for the next bull run. I mean, I think a lot of people thought that Ethereum had a lot to do with the last bull run, especially with ERC20s and allowing all these new startups to just mint their own ERC20. But maybe decentralized finance is going to help start the next bull run. And, you know, clearly I'm just kind of talking at this point and rambling, and maybe I should go ahead and wrap it up. But I do hope you guys like the content. And again, check out Patreon if you want to support the channel and dive further into the metrics. And if you'd rather just you know, not do that, that's fine. Just please subscribe to the channel and check out Telegram as well. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I will talk to you next time. Bye.